Hey, good afternoon, everyone. This is Reverend Dr. Wayne M. Weathers. I'm coming today just to give some motivation and just to take you on one of my spiritual journeys that I had last week. But I also want to just take the time to remind everybody check out Conversation Unplugged on WWDB 860 PM in the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. Will be broadcasting tomorrow at 1 p.m. with my co-host Reverend Robert Johnson and Reverend Dr. excuse me, Larry Waltower. So I want to just take you on just a spiritual journey of something that occurred last week. And I want to use this as encouragement. I know I haven't been doing encouragement Wednesdays for the past couple of months. And so let me just really just get into just the heart of the detail what it is I want to discuss with you today. Normally I only do 2 to 3 minutes, but just for the day, I'll probably be about maybe 10, no more than 12 minutes. So last week I was blessed to attend the MMBB pastors cohort. And I was able to fly to Houston, Texas last week. And so flying to Houston, Texas, one thing I liked about this particular conference that I was able to attend, they did not load it. They really wanted pastors to have some free time. So this one particular morning, I've gotten away from not the discipline of prayer, but I've gotten away from the discipline of meditation. And so on my meditative journey, that brings me to the subject today, how to rekindle your spiritual flame. So through my training in meditation and things like that, praise be to God, in early 1990, I'm a former pastor, Bishop Heber and Brown for Shiloh Baptist Church at Edgemere. In our immediate discipleship class, that's one of the disciplines that he taught us was meditation. So I have a meditation app. I'm setting the stage now. I have a meditation app that I engage in. And so I like to meditate off of Asian music, Tibet music, etc. It's just things that I like to do. And so in this meditative journey, I heard the Lord say to me, I have this, various music. So there's this one I put on wind, and then I put on, the bonfire, like, a fire that burns, like if you're toasting marshmallows or you're having a bonfire. And then I would layer that sound, that environmental sound, with something smooth, like an Asian song that would just help me in the mood of meditation. And so as I'm getting ready to select one of my, the meditative music and everything, the Lord said something to me very unique. And what the Lord said to me was, he said, don't play the music, just focus on the fire. And so that kind of threw me off because I love music. I love meditating the music. And, I just was obedient. So now I'm sitting there in my meditative mode, and it was a struggle in the first 2 to 3 minutes. And then I just kept hearing him say, focus on the fire, focus on the flame. So as I'm focusing on the fire and as I'm focusing on the flame, now I'm hearing God's voice minister to me while I'm meditating. So now I'm focusing on that flame. I'm focusing on that fire. And I heard the Lord say to me, you lost your flame. And I was like, wow, he's absolutely correct. You lost your flame. And then he said something else to me in that meditative moment. He said, you've been consumed by the wrong fire. Whoa. So I'm there in my meditative mode. And I heard the Lord say to me, you lost your flame. You've been consumed by the wrong fire. And at that point, I understood why God said to me, focus on the flame. So what many of you don't know, if I've been in an emotional funk since the election. And many don't know it. The virtual platform is not the space really to discuss all in your personal life. But there's been some very interesting journeys that I've been taking since January 2025 that put me into a flameless funk. I'll be very candid with you. So let me start this part I can share, and then other parts I won't share. The election took a lot out of me. For those who don't know, I'm passionate for social justice. I was a consultant with the Pennsylvania Democratic Party. Was thought to be brought on by the Harris campaign in Pennsylvania. That didn't happen. And then we lost the election. And most people think that I lost my flame, because my spiritual flame, because we lost the election. It wasn't losing the election that was the unique moment that put me in a funk. It was what I witnessed on the Democratic level at the national headquarters. That really just took something out of me. I'm not going to lie to you. It took something out of me. Um, it's just the lack of investment in African American faith communities. How many of us, including myself, we got shafted over contracts. And don't get me wrong, we're not in it for the money. These are sincere folks that's not trying to milk the Democratic Party out of money to pad our pockets. But I was looking to employ people throughout the state. I was looking to really make a difference, someone who really care, someone who has an impact. And then to be encouraged to put in a proposal. First proposal was actually 7 digits, yes, 7 digits. And then I was told to reduce it to 6 digits, where 20% of that particular, 20%, excuse me, 20% of that budget and those digit figures would have went to administrative costs. But I would have been able to employ folks throughout the state who really cared, who wanted to make a difference, etc. And then to bring somebody else in out of state who's not African American, and then that person tells me that the crux of the money that they got comes from my clergy list, and so he wants me to turn over names to help him with the contract that he got, which was over 250,000. And so I saw lack of investment in African American podcasts, radio, etc. I just saw a deliberate effort to exclude people of color from contracts. I saw a deliberate effort not to take the Black faith community serious. I saw a deliberate effort to go to pastors who they believe had prestige and prominence, who had over a certain amount of members. And I don't hate on that, but yet the ones who were effective that may have 200 or less, 100 or less, etc., there was no outreach in that regards. So I went into a spiritual funk. And so there's another, lessons here, not to put all my baskets in all my eggs in a basket. And then there's another spiritual funk I went into. I went in the hospital back in January, and high blood pressure and things like that. And then there were some other challenges that I was confronting. And then I noticed that, as a friend, I tend to give people calls just to see how they're doing. And then I just said, let me just step back. You're always pouring out people that you were close to. You're always checking to see how you doing, how they doing, et cetera, et cetera. How about you just pull back and see how many calls you get from people you've always checked on, or people you thought was your ride and die, and so on and so forth. And the calls was minimum, none, even as we speak. And I don't say that with vitriol or anything like that. I mean, it's just a reality. You know what I mean? Some people, and I'll talk about this at another day and another time, some people are not contributors. They're just consumers. And so that really had a really impact on me. So, and then there are gatekeepers who think that you ain't good enough, so they won't open gates of opportunity. So I just kind of just stepped back, and I just like, you know what, let me just went into a flameless funk. I want to give shout out to my moderator, Reverend Dr. Eric Good, because the Lord just called him right before not called him. The Lord laid on his heart to call me about a week or so before I went to Houston. One, he says, I want to check to see how you're doing. Doc, we haven't been seeing you. He says, yo, we need your leadership. We need to see your face. And I took that wholeheartedly, because what he didn't know, well, I believe he knew, not personally, but the Lord just laid on his spirit to give me that call. I believe that the Lord was ministering to me through him to let me know, don't stay into that flameless funk. And so now I'm meditating, and the Lord shared with me, you lost your flame. You've been consumed by the wrong fire. The fire of anger, for some things that happened. The fire of just withdrawing, the fire of somebody else's mess, the fire of somebody else's thought process, consumed by the wrong fire. So how many of us have done the same thing? So in closing out, I'm here to tell you that now I'm back on my spiritual journey. Not that I ever left my spiritual journey, but I'm here to rekindle the spiritual flame that I let get extinguished. I am the direct responsibility or directly responsible for the flame being extinguished. Nobody, please understand, nobody can extinguish your flame but you. Nobody can get consumed by the wrong fire but you. And so I'm not going to put the blame on the circumstances or the challenges that I have encountered. And it's been interesting, challenges that I've encountered in 2025. I'm not going to put any blame on anybody but me, because when you make the decision to extinguish the flame that God put inside of you, there's nobody to blame but you. So let me close out by saying this. She says, wow, you've gone through a lot. Yeah, I have. I've been going through a lot since the beginning of 2025. But here's why I'm going through a lot. Here's why. This is why I'm going through a lot. And I'm going to close out with this, really, not a Baptist close out. Because when we as Baptist preachers say, I'm going to close out, we got about 20 more minutes of stuff. This is why I'm going through some challenges right now. Because at Vision of Hope Baptist Church, the Lord laid on my spirit. The Lord laid on my spirit for 2025 that our theme is walking in God's greatness. Yeah, walking in God's greatness. And about a week and a half ago, the Lord ministered to me, because I'm like, yo, if we're walking in God's greatness, why is all of this stuff hitting not only me, but hitting the church? And it's not internal conflict. It's a repair here. It's a repair there. It's a this, it's a that. So it's not internal bickering or battling. No, we don't have that going on at Vision of Hope Baptist Church, but we're just getting hit with this and getting hit with that. And I'm getting hit with this and I'm getting hit with that. And I'm just like, well, Lord, what in the world is going on? And God's revelation came in. This is why I'm going through what I'm going through. As the Lord ministered to me and said, when you're walking and pursuing God's greatness, you have to get through the trials. You got it? You got to get through the trials. You can't get to greatness unless you go through challenges. You can't get to greatness unless you go through the valley of despair. You can't get to greatness unless you go through the fiery furnace and the lion's den. So don't get consumed by the challenges don't get consumed by the fire of challenges. Allow God's fire to continue to ignite in you, to continue to pursue forward. Because when you are determined to burn, regardless of the circumstance, you will not allow your spiritual flame to go into a flameless process. So how do you rekindle your flame? Go back to your foundation and focus on God. Go back to your foundation and focus on the mission that God has set out for you to do. Go back and don't get concerned with who's walking with you or who walked away from you, because people are only in your life for a season. That's all they are. That's what my wife taught me in the early stage of my marriage, that people are only in your life for a season. And so, yeah, I've had some friends that I thought was friends that, they're those who are really tied up. So I'm not talking about the ones who are tied up, the ones who are busy, but no, I really thought I had some down home pastoral collegial friends, and maybe they're just caught up, or maybe they just wasn't as close to me as I thought. But I tell you, the one friend who's never left my side, and that's Jesus. He said, I will never leave you and I will never forsake you. And that's the one who spoke to me when I was in Houston, Texas, meditating. And he said, you lost your flame. Rekindle your fire. Don't get consumed by the wrong fire. Let God's fire burn in you. And Jeremiah said it best. It was like fire when he wanted to give up. It was like fire shut up in my bones. Reverend Ernest McCowan used to preach that a lot, or used to say that a lot in his sermons. Anytime you felt like quitting, it's like fire shut up in my bones. Shout out to Reverend Ernest McCowan, Second Baptist Church in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Yeah, he used to say that when I was an associate minister. Now I understand it more now than ever. So rekindle your spiritual flame. Don't let the challenges and trials and tribulations in life cause you to go into a flameless situation or cause your flame to become extinguished. Be determined to let your flame burn, not for yourself, but for the glory of God. Take care and God bless. And thank you for this Motivational Wednesday. God be with you.